Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Monday morning. And yes, it's Monday, so Grumpy is here in all his glory, and he's especially grumpy because our friend, the Polish Prince, is not with us this morning. He was going to try to join in for a bit initially, but then duty calls. He has to sell some jewelry to last minute gift shoppers over here. It is the 23rd. He even worked Sunday and missed the game actually. So it's the jewelry business. What are you gonna do? So he had to head off to work early this morning. Normal day off Monday. Obviously, we all know we always talk about his plans and stuff like that. So gonna fly solo this morning, hopefully with you guys. Serzi, Sparky, Alan, the gang is gathering around. Good morning, everybody. Grab the cup of Joe. We'll kind of take a look at the standings, talk a little bit about the game yesterday, and then talk about Christmas, I guess, because I know, let's see, tomorrow is Eve. So obviously, we're not going to have a show on Wednesday, Christmas Day. I don't know if you guys want to open presents with me in the morning. So this is basically our last show before Christmas over here. So did you get your Christmas shopping done? Are you still shopping? Will you be at Matusha's place a little bit later after the show today to get stuff? Where do you do your shopping and stuff? So yeah, throw those comments in there. I do really want to know actually, because I think we're going to get like a wide range of things. And if you're not celebrating Christmas, if you're just doing like the holidays, same thing. I think at the end of the day, I mean, growing up in Turkey, we did not have Christmas, but New Year's Day was the basically equivalent. I don't know how many people are celebrating Christmas as like necessarily like a religious holiday, more about like the gifts and all that kind of stuff, getting together and all that. So New Year's Day growing up was the day for that. So I don't think somebody was asking me this the other day, and I do not think we ever had like a tree or anything like that. We didn't go full blown like that. I know a lot of people back home do now, like do the tree for New Year's and stuff. I don't think we ever did the tree or anything like that, but we always did the what you want to call it, the gift exchanging and all that kind of stuff, that the party and all that kind of stuff. And it was New Year's Eve, it's more of a party that way, and the gifts are not as big as, except for the kids maybe. I think it was more about exchanging gifts and then partying together going into the new year and stuff like that. So Christmas is back on after yesterday's result. I mean, yeah, what a game yesterday. We talked a little bit about it, obviously, in the post match. Sorzi was on that as well. Sparky says Christmas is for the kids, New Year for the adults. I don't see. It's funny you say that because I think we're about the same age with Sparky. I at this point. The funny thing is, I'm normally up till probably like 2 or so. You know, playing PlayStation or watching something, whatever. But I'm usually up till like 1, 2 a.m. I have more trouble staying up for some reason. I think it's psychological for New Year's Eve. Than I do on a regular day when I'm normally up to like 1:32 and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like New Year's Day, like slowly as you go, I mean, honestly, like you're at a party or something like that, it kind of like loses this thing. But Christmas, yes. I mean, it's ultimately for the kids. But I do find this that now, especially like with the girls, obviously, like Jazz being in Milwaukee and she's finished her master's and started her official new job and stuff like that. Layla's in college, so they're away. So this is kind of like a get together, exchange gifts, and then kind of brings, I don't know, like for you guys, you kind of do the things that you used to do, from like the dinner, the breakfast, the Christmas meal, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like a nostalgic in a way. You bring the kids back, you do the same things, the family traditions and stuff like that before other characters come into the thing. We've always like celebrated just us four, so kind of like continuing that. It's kind of like the tradition continues kind of thing for now. So it's more for that. But the gift parts, I agree with Sparky, it is mostly for the kids really. I mean, I remember some obnoxious Christmas trees, thanks to Angie. Yeah, here's another question. So I'm gonna ask this, and everybody should raise their hand. Let's face it, the spouses are probably not watching this for the most part. How much of the mine does? My mine already knows. So, how much of the Christmas shopping do you do? I want a percentage over here for the kids, or have you done in the past for the kids? Like, give me a percentage. I mean, I'm at best giving some ideas for it. I might chip in here and there with like this one or whatever, but I was like seeing a reel the other day, and somebody like a stand-up was talking about that. Like, if you think your gifts came from your dad, you're awfully wrong, kind of a thing. And let's face it, I mean, I don't know if you guys are some of the stuff like we talked about, but I don't know the exact one that was bought. So it's like a little surprise for me too, as they like open up their gifts and stuff like that. So this says we don't really celebrate Christmas, more the holiday season, and do it for the kids. I think so too. And then, it's maybe that's what it was. I mean, back home, it wasn't like really more for being left out. It was always like New Year's Day was like the bigger day. Sparky says 20%. Okay, I want a percentage from everybody over here, because 20% is pretty decent. Pretty decent. Are we counting like giving ideas though? See, if you're giving ideas, I'm at probably like 20, 30, somewhere on there, but actually buying is going to be a lot less. See, that does not count. That does not count. We're talking about doing the actual decision making and purchasing. That's what we're talking about here. How much of it as a dad are you doing? Like the literal buying, clicking the checkout button, if you will. How much of that are you doing, or go to the cash register and actually paying for it? 20 seems pretty honest. I'll give Sparky the 20%. But if somebody comes here and says 80, I'm just kicking you out. I'm banning you from comments because you're full of it, is my guess. Unless I'd be really shocked if a dad comes over here and is like, oh, 80%. So I didn't even wrap the gifts. Actually, I buy them. This year actually it worked out. I did the shopping on Amazon. Would like showed a couple of things to Jazz, sent everything to Jazz. So Jazz would actually wrap everything up too. So all I had to do was like pick the items and obviously pay for the items, and then we go from there. But yeah, let me know. We'll probably keep talking about this throughout the day. I do want to know more, I think, as we go to Christmas, and with going in a really, really good mood to the holidays over here. I mean, obviously, there's a game unboxing day, but and like 2 more fixtures, obviously, before New Year's, right? Let's see over here. If I'm not mistaken, the other one is, yes, 29th is the West Ham game. So we have 2 more games to finish out the year. And really, on paper, you would hope for 6 points from there. But let's take a look at this. The Dutch gave gifts to the kids on December 4th or 5th. Really? I did not know this. For, like, what is December 4th and 5th? Do they have, like, a different thing going there? Or is it, like, just, like, a holiday for the kids? Or so the kids don't wait? Like, I don't know. Then the kids start waiting in November. So I guess that you're not really achieving that by doing it early. So I don't know what you get out of that. So you're gonna have to tell us, Alan. I never heard of that actually. And it must be a Dutch thing, because I don't think it's like a European thing from what I know of. But okay, let's take a look at this over here. And this is where we are at entering Christmas. And I know it's a big thing in the Premier League in the UK in terms of like, the team leading at Christmas kind of thing. And it does, I mean, it gets better than this, I guess. It has gotten better than this, right? But being 4 points up with a game in hand, which, mind you, we did see that both these teams lost points in that game in hand. So it almost makes it, because it's like a derby game and stuff, to like on paper, we didn't know. I was afraid of that one, especially if it happens on a 0-0, like a frustrating, could not score, Pickford spending 5 minutes on the ground kind of game. So that didn't end up happening. And that was probably one of the best things that could have happened to us. Looking back now, it really helped us. I know people will always say we'd rather have points than games in hand. I do get that aspect, but being 4 points ahead with a game in hand is not too shabby. I think Arsenal can the same thing. I think you look at this chart right here. If you're an Arsenal fan, it has to be very frustrating, because you had your chance to right here, over here, like those 2 losses. You did have the chance, but we had those 2 draws to gain room, and you did not. And I would think, as an Arsenal fan, that has to be really frustrating. And then you get a big win on Saturday. I think that these are like things that can be like really demoralizing to the guy chasing you. And I think that's why it's a big deal. You get a draw, they get a draw. They're like, God damn it, this was our chance. It happens again. Then they get a huge win on Saturday, which was a tough away game. They do lose Saka. I think I saw 4 to 6 weeks in the comments. If anybody knows the exact, do let me know. But then you get, like I say, Crystal Palace away is a tough game. They made that look easier than I feel like it always is. I mean, we didn't have the easiest of times there. A lot of teams don't. But then next day, Liverpool follows up with like a huge win over Spurs, where they just looked so freaking dominant, man. That was like a really, really a joy to watch. So I think that was like one of the things that I really like seeing there. Yeah, I mean, Sparky is right. Thank you, Everton, for the last two games. So that was definitely, I thought Chelsea at Everton, that, Everton could trip them up. I never thought actually they would trip up Arsenal at home. Jesus looks like his whiny face is gaining some kind of scoring form, but here's the thing, right? Like when your guy is clicking, and if you lose Saka for like an extended period of time, I mean, especially this time of year, even if you lose him for like 3 to 4 weeks, that's probably like 10 games or something crazy like that this time of year. So that's a huge loss for him if that happens. Chelsea, I don't know. I don't know how much of a, you can't deny. I mean, you look at like their goals scored, goals against, and stuff like that. It's not like they're stumbling through wins. So you have to consider them an actual like rival in this sense, like, title competitor for the title or whatever. But still, 4 points out of them, 6 points out of Arsenal with a game in hand. You can't ask for more. I mean, I wrote it in the title going into the show that nobody expected this. So if Jesus can't form during Christmas time, yes, I mean, if not now, when, right? But yeah, I mean, he's getting goals for him, which is one thing that they really needed and they hurt him. I don't know. I don't know how long it will go. Saka being out, I think, is a big deal. I know, he went out early in the Palace game and it didn't make a difference, but it makes defending them, I think, a bit easier because, like, similar to how teams defend Mo, you really have to plan again, like have a plan against stopping him, and that kind of like helps everybody else, right? I think that's one of the biggest things Mo brings that kind of like gets lost in the mix over here with these goals and assists and stuff like that. Aside from all that, he also opens up things for the others. I think not having Saka will make the others work even harder. Mid-game injuries are not the same way because by then you've already came up with a plan and you can't really like switch totally and stuff like that. Whereas now, as people go into games against Arsenal, they will know that Saka is not there, and that will kind of change things. I think let's look at their schedule over here. Let's see. I mean, Ipswich at home, that should be easy, right? They should be able to get the 3 points from that. But Brentford away is a tough one, and Brighton away is a tough one. So Arsenal has two tricky fixtures there. I think, if I'm right, Chelsea we looked at, Chelsea's fixture a few weeks ago, and it did not look. Fulham is actually like a tough game for him, I think. Obviously, it was a tough game for us, even though we were 10 men. I think if you were in 10 men, it would not be. Ipswich away is a total different game, I think, than Ipswich at home. So, and then they go to Crystal Palace. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, there's really no easy fixtures in the Premier League. So, you got to get the 3 points. But let's get to the game yesterday, because I really thought that was really something. I thought it was like extremely impressive. And not only we got the 3 points, I just feel like as I watch this team more and more, I have more and more confidence in them, if that makes sense. Like, before we were getting the results, and I know they were not always pretty or maybe not what we're used to, right? I mean, we were getting the 2-0 win. On paper, a 2-0 win is a comfortable, solid win with no risks. But as a fan, as you watch that, it's a bit more nerve-wracking when it's 1-0 and stuff like that, or like, oh, if it comes 2-1, the game can turn, kind of a deal. But as I see the play of this team day in and day out, I mean, I think it started, for me at least, it started with that Leverkusen game. And then Madrid, City, you can kind of debate now, I guess, was that City performance, all that and stuff. But regardless, it was City. And then, like, you watch this Tottenham game, there's so many games back-to-back. Really, the Fulham game, I know we lost points, but the Fulham game played with 10 men. The football played with 10 men was pretty impressive by itself too. And then same thing with yesterday. Like, as I see more of the play, I'm becoming a bigger believer. I know some people are just becoming a believer based on the points and the numbers and all that kind of stuff. Because obviously every week we're getting closer. Every match day that they don't come closer, you get closer to the title, right? But I think, as I watch the team, things like Champions League and down the road having some tough games and stuff, I'm becoming a bigger believer on the team itself. Arsenal gets 7 out of those 9 points. See, this is where short-term memory kicks into play because I already forgot what Arsenal's games were. Let's go back over here. Ipswich at home. Yeah, I think that's a 3. Brentford away, Brighton away. You're saying 7, huh? Yeah, I can see that. I can see one of them, like Brentford or Brighton, they're actually making it look easy, kind of like beat the Palace game. I have zero hope from this Ipswich Town game. I think they kind of like cruise through that one because of it. So I know like Ipswich can be resilient and stuff like that, but I don't think they hang on. They're not Arsenal. I don't think they're as savvy as Everton. I'm sorry, as savvy as Everton when it comes to defending and like hanging out for dear life kind of a deal. And Pickford did have like a ridiculous game. It was one of those like Pickford games. Saka out for many weeks, says Sparky. Let's pull that up real quick. News until February. So that was literally a quote. So I'm sorry, Sparky. When Sparky said many weeks, I was like, yeah, but what is many? And then you look at the headline from BBC. It says Arsenal winger Saka out for many weeks, because I guess that's what Arteta said, because it is in quotes. I see Talk Sports saying 10 weeks. Like I said, this time of year, you can miss 3 to 4 weeks, and that's 10 games. So they are saying February, though. So that is what, 4 to 6 weeks, right? So if that's the case, and the thing with hammies is you got to make sure they're done. You can't rush people back, because then you can kind of like reboot and then, push them another like 4 to 6 weeks. So hammies are always tricky. You never wish on an injury, but when it comes, you got to take it and be happy with it, really. I think that was like the only silver lining we could get out of that game as a Liverpool fan, with the Spurs game looming. And that's why I thought that made the Spurs game even more impressive, just because of, what Arsenal did the day before. That's kind of put the pressure back on you. I think now we're going to see, like, that's one thing that's going right now. For example, like, we're going to play against Leicester on Thursday. Arsenal play on Friday. So Arsenal is going to go into that game. I mean, we were looking at the standings earlier. Arsenal is going to go into that game 9 points behind, right? Am I looking at this right over here? Let's go back. Yeah, they're going to be 9 points behind with Liverpool in a game in hand. That's more pressure. Whereas when Arsenal play first and they close that gap, like before, we went into the game yesterday with only 3 points ahead. And you were like, holy shit, we're 1 game away now, because, you really don't count the games in hand as points in hand. So that's reverse pressure. I think if we play before the opponents, that kind of puts more pressure on them when you win, because it becomes if you don't get 3 points out of this, we're out kind of a thing. I mean, I would think if you're an Arsenal fan, you're still holding hope right now. You're only 6 points behind. With Arsenal, I think between the Arsenal and Chelsea, I want to hear what you guys think too. I know Arsenal is a more established team, but there are some things Chelsea has going for them that Arsenal does not. Chelsea can say, one, their European competition is going to be a lot easier, and it's not expected as much, especially if they're competing for the league. I don't think a lot of Chelsea fans will care about what they do in the Conference League, and really they can back into the final of the Conference League because of the teams. It's not like before where people get relegated to Europa and stuff like that. This is all they have. So obviously it becomes a lot easier to win it. They can kind of back into that. They have that, and they can say they're going to play Liverpool at home. Whereas, so they can say we can gain 3 points right there in their mind, right? Because it's a home game. Whereas Arsenal can't say that. They're going to come to Anfield, and they, for them to be like, that's 3 points, they can't count that as 3 points automatically. A draw there automatically pushes them up even further, because they're still like 3 points away. So I think that's one advantage Chelsea has. But I mean, who do you guys consider right now? Looking at the standings, you would just say Chelsea easily. And I think even though Arsenal is a better team, more established team and stuff, I do think Chelsea has those advantages that puts them above the others. And that's another point, actually, like that they have no pressure to win the league. Yeah, I mean, they will also buy themselves in title fight. There's a lot of pressure to win something. I agree. I think there's more pressure, but shouldn't that count against them? Shouldn't that make us less? Yeah, Spencer says Arsenal too. I think we all, is that because we started the season thinking Arsenal and City are gonna go after this? Um, cool Pokemon says good morning, sir. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the way it's going, it would be a big disappointment now, right? Like beginning of the season, if we're in a title race, like if we were like where Chelsea is and stuff like that, you'd be like, oh, that's fine. We'll be happy with top four and stuff. We kind of started the season like that. It's like changing of guard, going to slot and stuff like that. Now, I think you would be disappointed. Spencer says he thinks Chelsea will drop off. And very possible, very likely, really. I mean, I don't have. If Chelsea was playing Ipswich at home, I wouldn't be as confident as Arsenal playing Ipswich at home, if that makes sense. Even though, really, Chelsea has an easier time scoring. Both these teams don't have like a regular goal score threats. And if you look at Liverpool, I think that's one of the biggest things is how well spread these goals are. I mean, you see that yesterday. I think moving forward, I think somebody in the audience yesterday, I think John was asking, and we discussed it with Sir Z and Shelton in terms of who your front three would be now going, let's say, to a Champions League final or like a big game, like a title decider or something like that. And you would be hard pressed not to put Diaz in the middle, because that not only gets Diaz out there in the middle, where he has been doing really, really well, and then he enables you to get Gakpo out there as well, who did not maybe have the greatest game yesterday, but man, he brings so much to the table. And I think I feel like they are somehow a better combo with Robo on that left-hand side than Diaz was. Maybe because Gakpo is a bit more predictable. Gakpo is going to hug the touchline a bit more. And then knows when Mo has the ball to make those runs inside. I don't know. It feels like, Robo looks a bit more comfortable playing with him, knowing where he's going to be. We talked about this before, where nobody, including Diaz, knows where he's going to end up sometimes. So, which makes it difficult to defend. And I think it's a more dangerous thing for a guy in the middle as opposed to a winger. So I that's what I really liked about him. Changed my mind to Gakpo, Diaz, and Mo instead of Gakpo, Jota. Yes, Sir Z did have Jota. As much as I love Jota and what he brings, I think I like keeping Gakpo and Diaz out there at the same time. And what I also like about this is it seems like we can get 90 out of Gakpo. So it enables you, if needed, you do need like a center forward, a striker to go in there. You can put Jota in and slide Diaz to the left. So it kind of like leaves the door for that. Where does it leave Nunez? I am not sure. And I would think, I mean, I don't know what you guys think. Like, do we see him at the Leicester game in the middle? Because now Jota is healthy too. So Sparky says he likes Jota on the bench. I actually do as well. Yes. And yeah, I think we all kind of like agree on that we do like Jota coming off the bench, because it does not feel like when Jota comes off the bench, it feels like he's been playing the last 60 minutes. He doesn't need time. Like how some players like take time to get into the game or whatever. It feels like Jota can come in. He's that kind of a striker. He can be like, okay, where were we? And then he just like starts playing, and because it's all about the positions he takes and stuff. What I like from Jota and Diaz and Diaz, I think, has an advantage on this due to his speed. And I don't want to say strength, but is it more resilience? I don't know when, like, if I'm being pressed, I would rather be pressed by Jota than Diaz in some ways, because it's a lot more physical, it feels like, and aggressive in terms of press. And I know, like, we always go back to this. Everybody's like, Nunez presses. Nunez runs and runs fast at people. But if you look at some of the angles he takes, and I really think going back to like yesterday's game, that's why he did not start. That's why we started with Diaz, is especially like a team like Spurs, a team like Brighton, like who's building from the back. You got to make sure your press is effective, because if you press and they can break through it easily, what happens is what happened to Spurs yesterday, where they kind of were pressing, but really poorly. And we kept setting these triangles and like kind of advancing off the pitch. Go back to that first goal. I wish people at these TV stations would be more appreciative of the sports and the beauty of like the passing and stuff like that. But if you have the game recorded or whatever, go and watch the first goal, but go before like that Gravenberg pass and stuff like that, like 30 seconds before that. That was just a beautiful goal. The number of like little triangles we set up to kind of build through their press and then come and then switch it to the right hand side, and a beautiful ball and a great header by Diaz and stuff like that. I know the last three, like the motions of that whole thing look great, but if you go back another like 30, 40 seconds, man, it was just, I was like in awe. And those are things that I'm like, wow, that is great football right there. So only need one injury and Nunez becomes very important and Jota is injury prone. Yes, I agree to that, especially with the number of games, with the number of competitions there. And we will need Nunez, and we will need him to produce. So we will see how he reacts to that, because the kid does suffer with lack of confidence, and he has to know. You watched that game yesterday, and you kind of have to know where you are in the rankings now, right? And that has to kind of hurt a little bit, but he will get his chances to make make a case for himself. And I think this Leicester game could be one of them. I would rather not. I would rather have him see him at an away game. I thought yesterday's game, the last 20, 30 minutes was really suited for him. I was kind of, when did he end up coming in? He didn't come until 87. I really thought, he could have come in on the 70 or something like that, and he would do well against that Spurs defense that was kind of all over the place. So I literally told him how he should play so he could take it. I mean, yeah, and I saw like the post-match interview with Postagoglu, and I know he's getting frustrated because people are constantly asking him about like plan B, plan C and stuff like that. But man, you got to have that. I kind of feel for Spurs fans. Number one, they're Spurs fans. But number two, and we're not going to be able to have the panel show this week, obviously, because nobody wants to do the panel on Christmas Eve. And then next week is on New Year's Eve. So unless we can find a different day where we can all get together, I would really like, I mean, we talked to Jake about this on the panel show before. He almost feels like when he talks, it's kind of like resigned to the feeling of this is what we're going to get. You're not going to know what you get. It's really fun and exciting to watch. Even as a neutral, it's fun and exciting to watch. But I just feel like, as a fan, I will be very frustrated, man, because it's very obvious. Like, it is very, very obvious. It's almost like putting your striker in goal. Like, that's what I do. I put the striker in goal. Yeah, but you're not going to win like that. Yeah, it's exciting to see that guy in goal because he's not a goalie. But you're not going to win like that. So I don't understand the persistence. And he is going to get asked those questions. And I know he gets frustrated about, plan B, plan C and stuff like that. But especially when your starting center backs are out, not giving them any protection and not saying, that's what I love. I mean, they were pointing it out throughout the broadcast yesterday. But if you look at the positioning of like Gravenberg and Maka and how they can interchange, and what Szoboszlai does, I thought that was looking at the ratings now, obviously with 2 goals and 2 assists too, right? Yeah, 2 goals and 2 assists. Obviously, Mo is going to be the highest rated at 9.4. Diaz was at 8.7. Granted, I know this is just Sofa score ratings, and they can kind of be all over the place, but Szoboszlai was at like an 8.2, so he was the 3rd highest. And I thought, I mean, he gets a lot of crap unnecessarily from the fan base. And when I've hopped on a few call-in shows with Liverpool channels, a couple of them like Arsenal channels and stuff like that, and that's a question that I get asked all the time. I really think, especially when I hop on like an Arsenal one and stuff, like with like Northside or whoever, I think the question is coming because they were really afraid when Szoboszlai first came in, because he looked like he was just going to be ridiculous, like with the goals and stuff like that. I realize the goals and assists have kind of like gone down, but man, what he does off the ball and this time on the ball as well. The biggest thing I thought was, if you watch the game over and over again, when we had to play long out of the back, when they pressed and we had to play long out of the back, he was almost, because maybe because we have Diaz instead of like Nunez or Jota or something like that, he was acting almost like a number 9 and bring in. I think the third goal, for example, is this header that, like, normally you get from your number 9 to your number 10, which this was different. It was like your number 8 to your number 9 kind of a deal. So he was great in the air. Let's look at the stats real quick because it should show aerial duels won 3 out of 3. I literally maybe remember every single 3-1 because it was very effective in winning the header and bringing it down to somebody, and that's how we broke through their press. And once you break through Spurs press, Trevor says left Forster out to dry. I think those center backs too. Well, that kid is not even a center back. He's 18 and he's not even a center back. So yeah, I thought it was just setting them up to fail. I mean, if you did that and kind of like are shocked afterwards, like I don't know how many Spurs fans are like really shocked. So he says, do not feel for Spurs fans at all. With their kids last season after, yes. That was, I remember that. I do remember that. They celebrated like they won the title. But you got to give them that. They don't win anything. So you got to celebrate the small things. It's like a rec team. You got to celebrate small things and every win and stuff like that. Yeah, I think when you take out definitely best game of the season, I think you go back to when he first came over, like last year, maybe the first 4 to 6 weeks. He had some ridiculous games. I remember that Villa game when I think that was his first goal and stuff like that too. But I think, what he does and what he brings, he's very needed. That's the only issue probably if you wanted to come up with one thing, because I felt you go back and look at the goals. They're in one of them, in Kulusevski's goal, the second goal, that's all Jones not tracking him back in. So he gets through. Because he gives the ball, Kulusevski, like Jones has him at that point after the give and go, and it gets a deflection from Van Dijk. I heard a lot of people talking shit about Van Dijk on that, but I'm like, I don't know what he's supposed to do. He's there. He's trying to block the ball. You got to stay with your runner. That should be on Jones to follow Kulusevski into the box or not let him get into the box, one or the other. So that's that. And in the second goal, and in their third goal, I'm sorry, if you go back in and look at that, I know Van Dijk kind of gets caught like ball watching. So when the ball is like coming back in, he's kind of like, lost Solanke. But look at where Kulusevski is again. Because Jones was, if you think Van Dijk is lost, Jones was totally lost. So I do worry about Jones in that double pivot. So I really would love to get, and I've talked about a bazillion times why I feel Endo does not fit in that spot, because he can't do some of the things with the ball that Gravenberch and Mack can do. I think if we have one need, that's probably the area we should address and get one person. I don't want like everybody has like a huge shopping list for like January and stuff like that. I just want a player that you can rotate and get the same thing. I mean, it's not like you can go out there and get another McAllister or whatever, but you can get a player that gives you, 90%, 85% of what McAllister can do on a regular basis. I love Jones, but I think he's still more suited for Soboslai's role as opposed to like Gravenberch's role. He did end up coming in for Mac at the 68th minute. And yeah, he was at a 6.4, which is like the lowest of the team. And yeah, I don't want to like pick on Jones or anything like that either, but we definitely lose a level when that happens, when Mac and Gravenberch are not there. And in a long ass season, you're not going to be able to play these guys every freaking game. So you do need some performances out of Jones and Endo there. It would be great to have one more player to that mix. I don't think Morton is that player either. I guess, in maybe Slot's mind he is. I just don't have that confidence in considering him to be that player, but we'll see. Now January is coming, so let the transfer talks begin. But obviously we were doing a lot of talking on Discord about the contract situation first. So we'll see where that ends up and where that goes in the next coming weeks over here. I know, on paper, January 1st, they can sign with other teams and stuff like that. I honestly, the only player out of those three that I can see doing that is Trent. I don't see Van Dijk. If the deal is not done, I don't think those guys are signing anything until the end of the season. I think they're just like waiting it out and seeing what else is out there or whatever, if that's the case, or continue negotiating or whatever, trying to smooth the deal. I think those two definitely stay. The Trent thing, I don't know. And That's the thing, which I thought, by the way, I don't always give a lot of credit to Trent's defending. I thought he